Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Now I'll try to upload my PPT.
Vinal? Yes, sir, please. अरे join करो ना lecture में. क्या होता है मैडम, ये टाइम नहीं दे रहे.
ये ABI के
One second. ये PPT दिखाना था इसमें.
Okay.
Sir, any problem with sharing the PPTs?
Mute है.
Hello.
हाँ, आया.
Yes, sir. Your slides are visible. सर अनम्यूट कर दीजिए.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll straightway keep this presentation.
ओके सर, आप ये करिए, मैं थोड़ा आपका इंट्रोडक्शन ले लेता हूँ. ओके.
Yep.
ओके. Respected director madam, Dr. Saxena madam, and today's our eminent speaker Parthasarathi Bhattacharya sir, Dr. Parthasarathi Bhattacharya sir, and I welcome you sir, and director madam, kindly welcome our guests. I request you. And then Dr. Sundaramurthy will introduce its one. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. I take this opportunity to welcome today's speaker, Mr. Parthasarathi Bhattacharya, and all the RABI incubatees who will be joining this lecture. And this is a very good initiative on the part of RABI to directly listen to from successful entrepreneurs, because whatever you learn in a theoretical way, if you listen to successful people, you can learn that how they have dealt with the problems and how they have come up with a successful enterprise. So listening from successful persons is much more having much more effect than listening to the principles or theories about the entrepreneurship. So I think this today's topic is very relevant. It is not only relevant for the entrepreneurs, but also I think it will be very useful for our scientists also, because we are scientists are into the research, and how that research can lead to a successful business. So this will teach even our scientists how to be how to conduct the research that can be successful, have the successful scope for a business enterprise. So with this, I welcome everyone for the today's very interesting session. Thank you.
I request Sundaramurthy, Principal Scientist, Technical Economics, to introduce to Dr. Parthasarathy Bhattacharya.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Parthasarathy Bhattacharya among all the budding startups which are with Sipcot RBI. So Dr. Parthasarathy Bhattacharya started his education career with a master's degree in botany with a specialization in genetics and plant breeding. He went on to successfully complete MTech and PhD in biotechnology and engineering in IIT Kharagpur. He started his career as a startup ODC Biotech in Mumbai as a technical director during 1997 to 99. Then later he had his stint in JK Group of companies during 1999 to 2001, where he had elevated to the position of Vice President Biotechnology R&D. So he is known for the indigenous BT cotton technology development in competing with Monsanto, and they have commercially launched their product in 2006. And Dr. Parthasarathy has 25 years of commercial R&D experience in agricultural biotechnology. He has led large R&D and technology commercialization operation and is widely known for his work and experience in the area of molecular genetics and advanced crop breeding. So recently, if we see in January 2012, he along with his two eminent partners founded Tierra Seed Science Private Limited that works with a vision to ensure million smiles among the farmers, processors and consumers. He is currently holding the Chief Operating Officer position at Tierra Agrotech Private Limited, and he is also Director of TEDAS Agrotech Private Limited. So besides, he has won a lot of accolades and recognition in the form of awards from UNESCO, National Innovation Award, and he is also working in the governing body of Technology Incubation and Entrepreneurship Training Society of IIT Kharagpur. So now I request Dr. Parthasarathy to take on the stage and enrich our incubators. Sir.
Thank you all. I think I can see there are more than 20 participants, though I do not know many of them. Hoping majority of them are from entrepreneurial, endeavor. And I have given a topic for translation of research into successful business enterprise. Just before starting, I would like to know whether I'm audible. You all are able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Very much.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Enlarge the screen, or the screen is okay?
Sir, it has to be in the slideshow mode.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. So as the topic goes, that I would be talking on how we have translated our research activities into a business enterprise. And I have divided my talk into two parts. The first part, I will be talking about the Tierra story, our story, which we have built since 2012, January onwards till date. We are close to 10 years completion. And in the other part, I will talk about what I feel entrepreneur should follow or should not follow, some kind of advice from whatever experiences I have gathered in last 10 years of my entrepreneurial endeavor. So the start happens from the dream side, and same way, we started with us also. We started thinking that what we can do in the space of agriculture, what we can do differently, and also how we can become a unique company in the country. Though the initial planning that any entrepreneur will do does not mean that the path will be in the same manner, because many times we realize that the initial thinking doesn't really match when you are actually running a business. So that same thing happened with us. I will slowly describe all those challenges that we have faced and where we are today. We three started, myself along with Mr. Suresh, who came with commercial knowledge, and Dr. Surinder Tiku, who is pretty famous across India and many places outside India for his contribution in breeding research. So we three, came together and we continued our discussion for almost one full year. Entire 2011, we spent on planning what we should do in Tierra. And in 2012, we exited from our job and started our own company in 2012 January. I'll come to the current structure, but Tierra Seed Science Private Limited was the company with which we started in January 2nd. And the idea was to develop technologies and incorporate those technologies in few crops and technologies and the crops to other seed companies. That was a theme with which we started as a licensing company, technology licensing company. So our focus crop was cotton, corn, rice, and tomato, because we felt that these are the four crops which occupies 70% of the hybrid seed market in the country. And that's where, we decided these four crops to begin with. And our idea was that we will address some of the, hello? Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So coming back, what we decided that we will try to address few key challenges in each of these crops. So whether it is cotton, corn, rice, or tomato, we examined the farmer pain points and what could be addressed, what technology could be applied. Not every challenges could be addressed with technologies. So our idea was to identify key pain points and how can we address those pain points, whether it's, and our plan was to generate IPs, and at the same time we also know everything you will not be able to do it alone. So you'll have to collaborate with good labs, good institutes, good companies. So our focus was also to a large extent to collaborate with others globally. Soon after starting in 2012 onwards, we slowly started realizing that we need to demonstrate our technology commercially in the market. Without demonstrating the technologies, probably will not be able to attract investors or buyers of our technology. So in 2013, we started another company, Tierra Agrotech Private Limited. The idea was that whatever technology we develop under Tierra Seed Science will be initially commercialized through Tierra Agrotech, and subsequently the same technology or product would be licensed to others. And at the same time, Tierra Agrotech will continue to sell those products. But with time, we had changed our track, and slowly our ideas had gone more on developing technologies and commercializing by ourselves, because we realized in India, technology licensing is not an easy job, and there are not too many takers of technology-led products. So we started on developing technology and marketing it through the route of Tierra Agrotech. And in 2016-17, when some of the global mergers have started happening, we got two opportunities. one of the opportunity came because Dow Chemical and Dow AgroSciences were getting merged with DuPont and Pioneer. And they were supposed to exit from that cotton program in India because probably Dow DuPont had their own program in the US. So they will have to exit from cotton program in other parts of the world. So they had a company called Xylem Seeds, which was on sale. And we kind of started thinking, can we take over Xylem and integrate into our company? Because they have ready-made products, they have Monsanto licenses, etc. We should be able to commercialize our technologies through that route. So with external investors' help, we could acquire Xylem. At the same time, almost very close to each other, Monsanto and Bayer was getting merged, and Monsanto had to exit from their India cotton seed business. And we again beat for it, though there are a lot of competitions. But fortunately, we could also acquire to India cotton seed business somewhere around 2017-18. With these two acquisitions, suddenly we were kind of fully into the market. And fortunately enough, because of these two strong companies, we became kind of holding a huge germplasm collection and cotton coming from both DuPont Pioneer and Monsanto. So with a good pride, I can say that now we are probably one of the largest cotton germplasm holding company if in probably in Asia. So these all happened, with a lot of internal activities, which I do not want to go into detail, how the investors came, how we could manage to acquire these two companies. But what I can tell is these two acquisitions had brought us directly into the seed market, wherein we were selling the existing product of these two companies. And at the same time, we started launching our own products with our own technologies. In the same year, in 2017, we also had another opportunity to enter into biological space, which are basically growth promoting molecules with another company in Spain, Iron Biotech. We had earlier relationship with the same company for some other activities, but they all entered into India, and we also felt that this could be a good opportunity for us to join hand and launched a JV company called TDUS. Now these two companies are currently, because there are third investors came in. So these two companies now is 100% owned by a company called Grandeur Products Limited, wherein we three are still the promoters. But this is a BSE stock exchange listed company now. And very soon we are going to have a reverse merger with which the listed company name will be changed to Tierras Agrotech Limited. We are hoping that that process will be over by 2022 January. Like any other companies, we do have the vision, mission, and we primarily, our mission is to create true value for all our stakeholders. And how do we create that? Our goal is take help of all the modern technologies and implement those technologies and come up with products that can solve any of the farmers' challenges. It's more of farmer-focused company wherein we would like to bring in technologies that can solve some of the challenges of our Indian farmers faces today. Now, as any startup would be having, we also, when we started in 2012, initially we three had put our own saved money and started this company, started hiring people, creating facilities. And our ambition was that we should make this company as a mini Monsanto, which will be more of a technology-driven company than a regular seed company. But the challenge is, if you want to work on technology, you need funds, you need a lot of investment. So funding was something which any entrepreneur probably in the beginning days will be facing. We too faced funding issues, Unfortunately, in 2013, middle of 2013, we could get an angel fund investor who had invested in Tierra, and that had helped us to carry forward till 2017. We had to take much larger funding from the second round investment to acquire these two companies, Xylem and Monsanto Cotton Program in India. Besides this, for a startup, I believe, and we are facing this challenge even today. Company is nothing but few people coming together and working towards a common goal, and to do that, you need to have talent inside. So attracting talent is always a challenge for a startup company, because if you want to really attract talent, either you pay them well or you give them a dream that if they are part of this dream, then they will grow along with us. So that was another challenge, and I feel that we could address that challenge pretty well in our early days. Then there are issues like, say, example, DSIR recognition, because in agriculture, unless you have a DSIR recognition, probably you face a lot of problem if you try to get some germplasm, whether from within India or outside India. And as per the DSIR rules, till that time, till you are 3-year-old company, you don't get the recognition. Now there are some changes has happened, so probably the startups are able to get DSIR recognition. But when we started, that time that was a challenge, that till the time we became 3-year-old, we could not get DSIR recognition, and for that reason, we had to manage many things which otherwise would have been much smooth sailing for us. Same thing related to DSI recognition. You have issues with import permits. You have issues with sending biological samples outside country, because many times within India, that time there are not too many genomics labs which would have given us services. Right now, there are plenty such facilities, CROs available in the country. But during 2012-13, that was also a challenge, sending biological samples, including leaf tissues, out of the country with approval from NPA. Slow IP process, which is very much true for India. Even today, IP process is very slow. And at the same time, you cannot protect a plant. You'll have to go through plant variety protection route. And during those days, even plant variety protection laws were not that well implemented. Today, there are a lot much clarity on plant variety protection in India. But during 2012-13, even you are all learning how to protect our varieties that we are developing. Pollution control was another issue, because we are in the biotech space also. So there are approvals needed from Pollution Control Board. Similarly, uncertainty in the genetic modification research. So we strategically decided that we will not enter into GM research at all, and we'll focus more on other technologies where there is no regulation from the government side. Trials and testing at the time, and even today, they are a very expensive process, but now we have resources to do those. Reluctance of public institutes to collaborate with a startup, because startup doesn't have money to invest into the institutions, and either you'll have to go through BIDAC or BIPP route, which is also not very easy. They are time taking, and there are some strings attached. So you sometimes fear that your IPs will be, may not be 100% under your control. And then there are some unethical business entities. If you want to do it very ethical business, you have challenges to compete with those small and medium companies who doesn't really believe in licensing and other, things. So coming back, as I said, that we started with 4 crop: cotton, corn, rice, and tomatoes. Sorry, anybody asking anything?
No, sorry. Somebody sometimes they are opening there. Okay, sir, continue. No.
Okay. So we started with 4 crop, as I said earlier: cotton, corn, rice, and tomato. But subsequently, as our resources grew and we could include other crops, like we added mustard and we added millet, we added okra, hot pepper, cauliflower, etc. Now we have actually a very large crop portfolio. I'll come to it later. This is kind of a small projection, how we grew from 2012 to 2021 today. And as I already told that some of the things which are very prominent uh, development in the company is acquisition of these two companies and the JV company that we started in along with Iden Biotechnology. But every year was a challenging year, and major challenge was coming from the finance point of view. How do you run your company? How do you pay salaries to your team? How do you invest in your R&D to do something new? And we were a bit of fortunate because we could get an angel investor in the second year itself. But I know there are other startups who faces much more bigger challenges to bring in investment in their company. But as I said, that it's not a very easy work to do, and every time you are actually very much scared that if we don't get investment on time, probably we'll have to drop in some of our activities that we would like to continue. As I said earlier, that we focused on collaboration to a big extent, and even today we do a lot of collaborative activities. I've not listed everything that we collaborate today, but I just tried to project few important ones. For example, Keygene, which is a Dutch company, Netherlands-based company based out of Wageningen. If any one of you are in the space of molecular biology, molecular breeding, you know this company. They are pretty famous globally for their work in molecular genomics and marker discoveries, technology development, etc. We have one particular technology we developed in collaboration with SeqID, a Canadian company, where we did entire breeding activity in India. I'll come to it a little later. And they helped us discovering markers associated with those two traits. Phenome is the third company, which is actually a database management company out of Israel. We represent Phenome in India, and it's one of the best software tools that you can have currently globally, which can take care of all your data handling, whether it is breeding, whether it's biology, molecular biology, everything, your trialing, everything. So it's pretty handy, pretty user friendly, and it's brought us actually a lot of help in terms of our data analytics side. With CSIR, NBRI, I had a very long association with them since 2007 onwards. But when we started Tierra, we continued our collaboration with NBRI, particularly on cotton genomics and association mapping of key traits. I have a separate slide, probably I'll come to this a little later. Even this particular collaboration, we are hoping that can bring us a lot of value in terms of IPs and new technologies. Similarly, with Delhi University, we actually licensed their master technology. I have been working with Delhi University South Campus for very long, and we take some of the their technical support, technical advices on regular basis. As I said, these two still our major achievement, I would say, for Tierra, getting the Monsanto cottonseed business and DuPont Pioneers cottonseed business added to our program, and that has helped quite a bit. We are also working with a very unique project with KWS from Germany on a new fodder crop called fodder beet. There are a lot of work people tried in sugar beet side, but this is another new crop we are trying to bring into country, which can really benefit the dairy industry to a large extent. After our acquisition of these two programs, Monsanto and Xylem, we realized that we have now a huge wealth with us, and we probably hardly been able to use that huge wealth by ourselves. So one of the idea that I had was that why don't we donate some of our cotton material to CSIR, because I had a long association with CSIR, and I know there are issues to get access to good germplasm, and CSIR are actually many a times not able to get access to good germplasm so that they can really put their effort to discover new things. So last year, not last year, last year, we donated 1,000 germplasm to CSIR. And the idea is that we'll together develop some technologies which not only be used by Tierra, it will be available for probably other companies where CSIR can license their technology eventually. As I said, the team is important. Currently, we have a pretty big team. We are almost 207 people in the company, and every department we have been able to bring in talent, whether it is sales and marketing, supply chain management, breeding side, whether it is cotton, corn, rice, mustard, millet, and we also have a good trialing team across the country. So as I said, we are now about 207 people all together, and we are out of 207, we are having almost 64 masters, 10 PhDs, 91 bachelors and graduates, and about 42 diploma holders. This is our current germplasm bank, and we have about 10,000 odd cotton entries, rice 100, corn 800, and so on. And we are also creating a lot of new material through mutation in rice, soybean, and chickpea. We also have some population in cotton, but because now we have access to a huge cotton material, and we actually, not working too much on this mutation side of cotton. So this is a standard system in any seed company per se, where you do research and you conduct research trials. I don't think I need to go into detail, but ultimately, market is, we need to do something which market needs. You cannot randomly develop something, but there is other way to look at it. If you have some idea which probably market is not able to visualize it today, and if you can develop such kind of product or a technology or a process which you can actually demonstrate and make market aware of it. So market is also very dynamic. If one can bring in a new thought, market will observe it, test it, and if they like it, they will accept it. If they do not like it, they will reject it. So the bottom line is, you can do research, but if there is no acceptance in the market, then there is no business. Similarly, as I said, we have more than 45 across country, and we have been aggressively testing most of our products across the country now. This is our processing plant where we process our seeds, process, pack, and it goes to the market. So coming back, what I told is kind of a mix of what we have done so far. There are something which are really may look very easy, but they're not really easy. There are a lot of difficult situations we have to face and actually win over others. But one thing which I believe is keeping Tierra standing out of the major population is our key product development strategies. I'll give some example. As I said initially, that for every crop we could identify one or two key pain points, and we try to address those. One of the key pain points, though we have identified much early, but still we are in very, very early stage, maybe because the policy related issues, maybe because we are yet to convince farmers that this technology can really help them bringing changes. So the idea that I'm talking about is high density and mechanical harvesting. We all are aware that India's cotton productivity is much less compared to any other developed countries or even developing countries like Brazil. So if we look at their productivity and our productivity, we are much lower, and our per unit area yield is probably sometimes half or 1/4 of some of the global countries. So our idea was how do we address that, and Our challenge is India is mostly hybrid cotton, and without coming out of hybrid system, can we also adopt some of those plant architectures that can fit to the machine? I know there's a parallel effort going on where there's no effort on changing the plant architecture. There are machines being developed, which are very small machines, which can go and harvest from the cotton field. But what approach we took was we tried to work with companies who has already mastered the harvesting technology. We started working with John Deere in 2013 itself. And our idea was how do we develop hybrids which has that are needed for such machines. And at the same time, other trait like synchronous maturity, uh, defoliation, if we can have, in India currently still there are no defoliant commercially available, though the Bayer is trying to bring in their drop ultra, but still there is a gap in that space. So we try to identify lines where with withdrawal of water can we have 70 to 80% defoliation. So some such thing we worked, and we are actually very happy to say that we made some progress in it. And this is our field and where John Deere machine with only one head. So in US and other countries, in Australia, in China also, there are multi-head machines. In India, they imported for us one single head machine, and now they are probably working with many other companies, including us. Similarly, in rice, also we have very different kind of program, how to bring in multiple diseases and pest resistant traits. And at the same time, we also tried to work on how to lower the hybrid seed production cost. So currently, one of our major technology that we are is how do we develop female lines which has more number of seeds and exerted stigma. Probably you'll be able to see some of the left-hand side pictures where one of our female line having more than 400 to 500 grains with all exerted stigma. So it can actually bring down the hybrid seed production cost to 50% than the current conventional practices. Besides bringing in many other traits, we have a good molecular biology activity in terms of molecular marker assisted breeding, where we try to transfer some of these very much needed traits like BLB, BPH, BLAST, etc. to our hybrid rice. We do have a magic breeding population. Some of you may be knowing how you can create a new material wherein you can have multiple parent-based process and develop your own line. We have that program in our breeding program. Similarly, in corn, our particular focus is on short stature corn, and where again we can have high density planting. So one of the key trait that we bring in more number of plants per unit area in most of the crops wherever it is possible. The same effort is going on in corn. And as I was telling that we collaborated with a Canadian company, SeekID, and this is the trait for which we work together. This is a disease for tomato where this is called peanut bud necrotic virus disease. It's again a TOSPO virus, wherein we could bring this resistance from a wild variety. You can see this pale color fruit, which is basically Peruvianum species, which is a wild species, non-edible tomato. And from there, we could bring this trait. You can see the top two picture, the plant, if it gets TOSPO virus, the plant starts, completely dying, and it will become a kind of a burning effect to the plant. And in the fruit, you get these yellow spots. Many times the farmer calls them tiranga. And this is nothing but TOSPO virus infected fruits. So now we have a technology, and we are launching our first set of hybrid this year with full resistance to TOSPO virus. And that's purely a molecular biology and a breeding program. Both put together, we could develop this technology. And this technology we are also offering to other seed companies within the country. we have a big major program now in mustard breeding, wherein again the focus is the wild quality, canola quality wild in mustard. But anyway, Government of India is giving huge support to wild seed crops, and we are not far behind with our competition. Our own hybrid is actually capturing a large market. But the theme is how do we improve the wild quality of mustard at the same time keeping the yield parameters and other parameters intact. We do have quite a few plant varieties protected. We have almost 8 in cotton, 4 in tomato going on. We have a couple of IPs, one granted, along with CSIR again, and another one is pending, the TOSPO virus that you just saw. We hope that the patent will be granted by 2022. And coming back to the other company, TDUS, where we have this 50-50 JV company with agrobiologicals. We have a 50-50 JV with Iron Biotechnology, but during COVID time, this company had to face a huge challenge and they got bankrupt. And finally, the company's technology being purchased by another major European company called Timac Agro. And the JV part, we are again buying back the 50% of their, so that will soon become 100% owned company. TDUS will become 100% owned by Tierra. So I'll just show you a few of the popular products, though I would say that this is probably not the right forum, but just to give an impression in 10 years time, how a startup can come up with their own products and reach to the market. And some of them are pretty old product by Monsanto or Xylem, and then our new products are also added to it. I'll not take much time, but I'll just pass through some of those pictures. So we are also in fodder, we are in vegetables, and some of our product, all are not in pipeline, not in commercial, some are in pipeline. I'm sure in coming years, we'll be able to launch more and more products. This is our research R&D center in Hyderabad, and we have a good molecular biology facility and fermentation facility for biologicals. We have greenhouses to screen, at the same time advancing our breeding programs, line development programs. So that's all about the basic Tierra. I think I'll be able to come back with questions, finish by the other part. Probably you all can ask any questions about my first part then. Coming to the startup part, this is more for those people who have just started their own company or being incubated in SIRCOT. And I appreciate all of them for taking up this challenging step, because only very few people can think of not doing a job and doing something for their own. And that's a different kind of fun, Whoever can enjoy that, I'm sure they will be very happy comparing somebody, probably if you are working for others and when you are working for yourself, there's a distinct difference between both. Business of science is not very old. In fact, if you look back, even Monsanto's BT cotton technology itself is a science business. Only by putting 2 gene into cotton, they could really substitute a lot of pesticide. And this particular book is actually based on the success story of Monsanto. And there are endless opportunities. I've just given one example book. There are plenty such books. And science, they are going to be, they will only survive in today's world. Others will have to follow or, license the technologies from others. So I would strongly recommend whoever, starting your business, please try to include strong research into your processes. That's the value probably you'll be eventually capturing in your future days. One of the questions probably, including me, we all have, can I become an entrepreneur? Because no one in my family ever did any business. I do not know currently, whoever you are there in this incubator, whether you have any family background of doing business, but many times you see that you are the first generation businessman, and because you do not know how easy or how difficult it is. You have a fear in mind. So just to bring in another aspect to it, I just listed out 4 people, and you all probably looking at their faces, you know who they are. And none of them have come from a business family, but they could become very big actually. They are the icons of world businesses. But even if you are doing a small effort, don't worry, whether your parents or in your family, anybody has done business or not. It's not something that you cannot learn actually. But you'll have to be definitely careful, because you'll be learning something, probably comparing others who is coming from a business family. They may be knowing already some of the things, the challenges generally the business family faces. The standard process is almost same whether you are in an agri-based business or any other business. There's not too much of difference. It starts from an idea and ends in commercialization. So I would say the process is same, but the most challenging part is the idea part. What you should do, what project you should take. That's the key in the entire process. Though it's not like that you have one idea and you cannot move to another idea. But moving is also not very easy when you are a startup and you are struggling to get investment. So if you do not have the correct idea, probably many a times you end up thinking that, oh, my beginning itself was wrong. But coming to this point again, I have given few points which you can all think and probably inculcate in your system. There are always going to be good ideas and bad ideas. Initially, every idea looks good, but whether it is commercially good or not, you'll probably have to take some advice from some of the mentors who are in and around you. Talk to them who has business experience, what they think. Many times, even a good business man may underestimate your idea. So don't get disheartened or drop your idea just because somebody is saying that no, it's not a good idea, it's not going to succeed. Somebody has to persuade their ideas. But you'll have to take your own wisdom and think about it, do research, and that research should be very, very rigorous. You need to spend a lot of time to figure out whether your idea is really making a business sense or not. Similarly, you will also have to ask yourself that are you really willing to be an entrepreneur? Or if you get an opportunity to get somebody is offering you a job, you switch to the job. So you should not be in double mind. If you decided to be an entrepreneur, probably you have to stick to it. Unless you become completely your all finances gone and you have no other go than going back to a job and probably thinking that let me do this job, earn some money, and I'll come back to my business again. So my personal advice will be that unless you are very much focused, entrepreneurship is not an easy thing to do. It has full of challenges. It is kind of riding a tiger, Once you are on top of it, it is very difficult to climb down. So you'll have to think very, very critically whether this is your cup of tea or not. And don't get emotionally attached to it also. You'll have to keep your emotions aside, because doing business many times, if you are too emotionally attached to your project, many times there is a fear of failure also. Another thing which I would like to give you an advice is that if you have come up with a bright idea, you'll have to work on that idea yourself for quite some time till you kind of get full grasp on this idea. And don't talk too much on your idea to everybody, because I believe idea has legs, and someone else who has much more resources can take your idea and do a better business than yours. So work on your idea, keep it with yourself till the time you are very confident that now you have made some progress. You need to talk to outsiders, others, and then because you know that you have much more detailed stuff already within you, which the other guy may not be having. Another idea, another suggestion I would also give is to begin with, for any entrepreneur, if you select a very futuristic project, then it may become a challenge. It happened with us also. But what we did is we had divided our risk into 4 different crop and 8 different projects. And we were sure that out of these 4 crop and 8 project, at least 2 or 3 will succeed, if not all projects succeeds. So every project may not be very easy or very simple. But my suggestion is that avoid selecting a very futuristic project and take up the first project of yours, which has much higher chances of success. So as an example, I can give you, tissue culture banana, and somebody, wants to make banana out of fishes, that may be technologically possible, but who will eat that? So my suggestion is the chances of success is high. Coming back to the disruptive ideas, my suggestion would be also to identify if you have any idea which is bit of disruptive. Look at today the Facebook story, the iPhone story, or even now those drives that we used to use for storing data has drastically changed. Camera system is completely changed. And those companies which could not go along with these changes, they all got vanished. Similarly, Bolgard is also an example. I already told how much change it brought in cotton agriculture globally. There is another thinking I would like to give a thought. All of you should give a thought. There are 2 ways to do business. One of the business style is build to sell. You build a company and work on it for 10, 12, 15 years, and then you have another great idea. So you sell this business, exit from this, someone else comes up and buys your company, and then you go to another idea. So this kind of thought process is called build to sell. So whether you want to make a company build to sell, or you want to make a company build to last. So if you want to continue and build, which will grow big, take an example of Reliance, and the vision was from the beginning is to make a big company which will become a global company and that will last forever probably. But there are many stories. Say for example, WhatsApp. They built and they sold, they captured the benefit, and they are now in something else, some other ideas they will be working on. With that company also, they will make it up to a certain level, sell that, exit, make another one. So both are good, no either of. But if you have a clarity, in your back of your mind that this is what we want to do, then your strategies will be a little different when you build the company. Again, I will come up with some of the areas where startups are becoming big. There are sequencing companies like Nanopore, and that they have a big giant like Agilent. There are technologies like conventional breeding companies are following, but now the new technology coming, speed breeding, where you can develop a pure line much faster compared to others. Then earlier it used to be all human, all plant breeding, the field and phenotype. Now you have automated phenotyping. Probably I have another slide onto it. So if you look at small areas, but there are opportunities. How do you look at that big challenge and break it down to small challenges and identify how do I address this small challenge? And there could be a buyer even if you solve a smaller challenge. I'll come with a small challenge. Every seed company, they have a purity system. So what generally we do, we have a proper quality control process where we screen the seed, we see germination, we see mixtures, we see vigor, we grow the plant, and we see the true type plants are there or not, if there's an off type or not. And now there is a small company from Israel called Seedex has come up, and they are successfully giving this service to many European and Asian companies, where just by analyzing the seed architecture, they're able to predict the exact contamination level. So then you save a huge time in terms of growing the plant in the field and sending your team to look at every plant and every lot that we produce in seed production process. We work on seed lot wise. Hybrid I may be producing in 5 different locations and 5 different lot comes to me. And finally, I do need to check them, growing them in the field about their purity. So now there are DNA-based purity system is available, but which is a bit expensive. But when it comes to image-based system, it becomes very cheap and it becomes very fast. So we are also still exploring whether they are able to do kind of crop that we are handling with them. And I'm sure if it succeeds, it can bring a huge change in the seed purity system. Similarly, insect resistance is again a Dutch company based out of Netherlands. And what they are doing is they are seeing the insect behavior on the plant surface, mostly on the plant leaf surface. And you'll be surprised to know that they use a software tool which is generally used in soccer field, in football field, to identify the best football player in the team. So most of the soccer companies, soccer clubs in Europe, they use certain software to identify the player, who is the best player in the team, and how he moves in the field, how he behaves with his teammates. So all these things are analyzed. This is a very common to most of the European clubs. They use this. So this company has started using that software on insect. Insect behavior tells us whether the insect likes the plant surface, like the plant to eat, or not like the plant. So based on that, they have been able to give this service to various ornamental companies already in Netherlands. And this is a very useful tool. You can put your cotton leaf or tomato leaf or rice leaf, and you know that this is the insect that I would like to screen. And then you release those insects, and this behavioral pattern will be captured using a camera. And then they will analyze that and they will tell, okay, this entry, this particular germplasm or this particular inbred is resistant to so and so pest. So it's your wish. You need to identify the pest and the plant, and then you submit your sample and they will come up with the solution. Why can't we think of something similar in India? So in India, we are yet to, think little abruptly. This is the kind of thinking which actually impresses me, finding out some such new thinking and how people are able to use new technology and support. Ultimately, it will help our farmers if we can sell a product which has an insect resistance and it is already there in nature. We just only have identified. Many times what we do currently is, if I have 100 lines of, say, for example, rice, I want to screen it for brown plant hopper, I send it to all the hotspot and then bring it back. And again, repeat it multiple times year after year. And then probably I identify, then I start my bidding program. Whereas here, it can become very fast. Every day you can screen hundreds of lines in a day. And you can then repeat it many times. Now, if you shortlist that this 10 line on my system repeatedly shown tolerance to this pest, I will then focus only on those 10 entries across hotspot instead of screening, say, 100,000 lines in those hotspots. Similarly, there's again, because I keep scouting for technologies and I keep meeting people in various places. Another very interesting work I found happening in Europe is programmed cell death. I came to know about this idea almost 10 years ago when I was attending a conference. Some people started talking about plant can have some molecule which can actually make changes in the insect, where either they will not lay egg, or even if they lay egg, the egg will die on the plant itself. So this is something which is going great, and I'm sure very soon we'll see some technologies coming up which is The pictures that you are seeing here, in this particular species, I'll not give much detail, wherein after the eggs are laid, plant on its own starts secreting a chemical molecule which actually destroys this egg. So they have discovered those molecules which the plant starts secreting moment the eggs are laid, and the eggs kind of gets damaged. They will never hatch and become into a full insect. So this is another way of bringing in insect tolerance technology in the crop. Then there are regular thing happening. Drones are very common nowadays, and a lot of things are developing. I do not know among you if there is somebody working on drones and drone-based technologies. There are sequencing-based technologies, and a lot of things are happening to identify genes. How do we identify genes at a cheaper cost? How do I associate a marker with my plant at a 1/10 of the cost than it used to be a year back? Similarly, there are a lot of work going on in improving nutritional quality in crops like pulses or in oil crops. We are also doing quite a bit of work in pulses in terms of enriching its protein content. Then there are automated platform, as I said, phenotyping platform. What you see here, there's a company called Crop Design, started in Belgium maybe 20 years back, and eventually got acquired by BASF. And they were screening initially a particular rice variety called Nippon Bar, and they're putting gene inside the plant and screening the expression. This was built to study the transgenic expression. Eventually, BASF started using it for the new molecules. And now phenotyping has become, automated phenotyping has become a very big thing. Most of the big companies like Corteva or Bayer or Syngenta, they do use these technologies very aggressively, screening the plant phenotypes that can really fit to their kind of agronomic system or agroclimates. Lemnatech is one of the largest company in this space globally. Now there's another thing which has become very popular of late within India as well as outside. This is called a lot of research going on, a lot of things are happening. Unfortunately, probably still I believe cotton is not a crop which can really go with hydroponics. But somebody may also ask why cotton. There are a lot many things one can do in hydroponics. In Hyderabad, there are quite a few companies now entered into this space, supplying starting from all leafy vegetables to okra, tomato, gourds, different gourds, all are grown in hydroponics now. So this is another technology space where people are working. Now there are robotics. There are a lot of robotic work going on, whether it is to spray chemicals, whether it is to spray herbicide, whether it is harvesting crops, a lot of work going on. And globally, there are many companies. I'm sure in India also a lot of people are working on it. Now coming back, after, I wanted to give you some examples just to open up your mind what is happening, in this space globally. I'm sure you all know to run a company, starting a company is easy, closing is very difficult. So you need to be very careful. You should follow all the laws and norms. If it is a private limited company, you need to follow a lot of stuff. You should have a proper advisory, whether it is a company secretarial support, accounting support, legal advisory support, banking support, IP support. Even if you draft you something with somebody, another company or another person even, you need to sign some kind of confidentiality agreement with them or a non-disclosure agreement. If you exchange some material, I'm sure you will be knowing about material transfer agreements. In a larger form, it becomes an MOU. So these drafts are not very easy draft to do. So you need to take expert advice before you sign anything or you make somebody sign in your document. And coming to government funding, there are lots of government funding available, but you need to really critically see whether you really need to take government funding or not. If you really think that it is time to take a government funding, then you also try to understand if there's any string attached, if you get stuck somewhere, or whether you can still manage by taking fund from your friends and families. This is again coming back to whether you should patent your technology or keep the technology as a trade secret, or you have some idea, you name it, you give a trademark, or you have a software developed or designed, you copy. And then, of course, if you are working in developing plant varieties, you should protect. But again, protecting plant varieties is also not a very simple thing. It has a lot of other issues which you need to critically look before you decide to protect your plant variety. Another very important thing I would suggest all these entrepreneurs is importance of networking. You need to meet people regularly, across. This is something which is very important for a startup. Meeting people should not remain within your, four walls or few friends that you know. You have to go out, attend different conferences, meetings, whether it is related to your project or not. You need to expand your network, and people should know what you are doing. You never know from where which help can come in. So these are different funding options. I don't think I need to talk much about it because already I'm sure different banking people are talking to you people, and they probably will be giving you much better advices. And there are various funds. I've just named 5. There are thousands of people looking for good ideas. So it's only the good idea and how you are able to reach out to him or her or a company, explain what you are doing properly. There's a thing called pitch deck. You need to prepare your pitch deck properly, where you can really explain what you are doing. I'm sure you must be already made all those things, but I'm just repeating in case somebody who has just joined you in your startup and may not be knowing these things. And as I said in the early, in my earlier portion, that you need to have a prepared mind and know one thing. Every aspiring into the one thing is every aspiring entrepreneur need to understand right from the start is that financial success is going to take a while. So this is something very, very important. If you think that within second year, third year, I should be able to generate revenue and I'll be able to become self-sustaining, it may or may not happen. So you should have your plan B ready. It should not, if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, you should not be in a position that, okay, I don't have money, so I'll have to close down my activity. So I'll end with one statement of Zig Ziglar. If people like to listen to you, but if they trust you, they will do business with you. So trust is very important, whether you're a very small company or a big company. The entire business runs on trust. So I would suggest that keep that one word in your mind. You should work with somebody whom you trust, or otherwise the fellow who is trusting you will do business with you. Both sides is very, very important. So ending with success is a journey is a common statement, not a destination. Thank you. This is my current team. I just end with my team. Thank you.
Discussion.
And now the session is open for discussion. Startups, come up. सर थोड़ा मीटिंग में मैं आपको फोन करता हूँ. I will call you back. हाँ सर. Yes, Dr. Pawar.
Okay.
Kindly.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Thank you very much for the excellent lecture. You have given so many valuable tips, and whole lecture was, encouragement to us. Got much inspiration from you, sir. Especially the tips which you have given for the startups are, really useful in our day-to-day life. Sir, even though you have touched 2-3 times, but still, I would ask you to share your experience on, the point that, most of the time we all startups are very good at, having ideas and all, and we mostly need the money energy to mobilize it. What precautions we should take while accepting money from the angel funds or big investment agencies?
Okay. Okay. So, anytime taking money from somebody, it comes with a responsibility that you will make use of it properly, and at right point of time, the investor should get back whatever he has invested, at least the principal. And the better thing is that if you can add to it, 1x or 2x, nothing like it. And he is coming as an angel investor, believing you that and your project and idea. He will also assess. It is also his responsibility to figure out whether he believes in your thought process, he believes in you or not. So it is equally responsible. It is not always one-sided, but I'll tell my experience. The angel investor we got, we are very lucky that he invested and he believed us, and he gave full support. He never came to us in between time and asking how far you are, when are you going to be able to generate revenue, when are you going to give us money back. Fortunately, it has not happened with us, but that may not be the case every time. So I feel that more transparent you are, with all your planning, and if you meet and continuously update what is going on, you should not hide anything from the investor. The first and most important part is whatever it is, whether you are able to make it or not happening for various other reasons. Transparency between investor and the entrepreneur is very, very important. And I'm sure if you are able to explain why something that you have estimated it will happen in so and so time, but it is not happening, then I don't think that the investor will mind. But at the same time, my one suggestion with you would be to understand what the investor wants, whether he wants to continue with his investment and grow with your company, or he wants his money back. If his interest is that, okay, I have put 1 and I want to get back 3 by so and so time, then my suggestion would be that none of your IP rights or technologies that you are working on, he will have any say onto it, because you should remain 100% owner of your idea. That is very, very key. If he has in his mind something like that, I will exit after a certain time, then you should not give away your IPs or your thing in any form, whether it is trade secret form or even in a patent form or any of these form. Once you stuck on IP with anybody, it may bring a lot of challenges. I do not know what project you have, what kind of IP you are planning to generate, or is it just making something or selling? Making something and selling, no worry. But if you think that, okay, I am doing something which is not there, I can have an IP on it, then probably my suggestion would be that the investor should not have any right on the IPs. That should be very, very much clear. I hope I've been able to give some answer to your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I also want to ask, in addition to this one is, most of the time we startups also have, so many, misconceptions in our minds. Like if these, investors are coming, then they are, grabbing your ideas and all these such things. So in your experience, what are these misconceptions we should not have in our mind?
See, one thing is for sure, with your investor, if you ask your investor to sign one non-disclosure agreement, most of the investor will not sign, because he's looking for people where he can invest. But if he gets stuck with you on an idea, then he's stuck with another 10 people with their ideas also. So do not expect that an investor will sign a non-disclosure agreement and listen to your ideas. What initially you are supposed to share with the pitch deck is very, very preliminary. But when he agrees for the first pitch deck that yes, he is liking your concept and now he wants to go for the next step, then you need to sign an NDA with him. He should not take your idea to some other fellow and work on the same idea. So in the first pitch, what you are making to him, it should have those key components hidden. You will not share or give away those key components of your thought. And I'm sure an investor will understand that. But when he says that, okay, now I am finding your ideas interesting, I'm willing to invest into it, provided you provide me more information and the budget and other parts. That time you can insist for a non-disclosure agreement so that he cannot go to anybody else.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Vinod Atkare? Vinod? Anything you have?
Mr. Vinod? Mr. Vinod Atkari?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Just quickly.
Yes, actually, no doubt from me, sir. Yeah, I appreciate the speakers about all the discussions about trade secrets, how to grow in startups ecosystem. Like, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Khadi sir, Dr. Khadi sir, if you share, I invite you to share some word. Khadi sir? Whether he's there? Huh? Okay, he's not there.
Mr. Ravi Shankar Bhatt?
No, sir, I don't have any questions, sir. It was very useful topic and very inspirational talk. Thank you to the speaker.
Vyomkesh, you have any questions? Mr. Vyomkesh?
I don't have any questions right now, but it was really excellent lecture, and we thank sir and you also for arranging it. If I may, if sir allows, I would like to contact him later.
Okay.
Sure. Why not?
Thank you, sir.
Ashwini? Miss Ashwini Jadhav?
Okay, sir, just last question from my side, sir, to you.
Yep.
Sir, regarding this IP issue and the partnership, sir, I have also doing this type of research in the startup area and agribusiness incubation area. Sir, but sometimes what happen, these people are sometimes also going to a very chaotic condition. One of our startup who has done a good business in textile, but later on they are all IITians. But they are working in such a way the environment is totally chaotic. Today the company which has done a business within 1 year 50 to 60 lakhs rupees, but today it is shut down. One thing. But another thing that, sir, when we go for a funding, outside funding from other investor or somewhere, they actually really asking the total technical nitty-gritty, or we are just showing them our product. We should not disclose them all the nitty-gritty of our technology. Suppose your company, they should not come inquire about your gene sequencing or your marker fiber. They should know that the tomato is coming very good. That way you cannot deal with them.
Yeah. I think what you said, as I understand, see, you need to disclose your critical information, because any company has a right to keep their trade secrets. Even if you look at Coca-Cola, no one knows their formula yet.
Yes.
So we keep drinking, still we do not know what is exactly the composition of it. We accepted it. So, and they are so big because they could protect their formula not by patenting, but by keeping that as a trade secret. The challenge in patenting is also, patent gets published. So in patent, you'll have to give all the detail of your technology and it will get published. And then in a corner, somebody is sitting and copying your idea, you probably will come to know much later.
Yeah.
And patent has a lifetime. It is either 15 years, 20 years, and you can keep investing on maintaining the patent. So patent is not free of cost. It comes with a cost. So my suggestion with most of the entrepreneurs who are just starting, they need to identify this is the critical component of my project, of my company, of my product. And that critical component should be kept with them very, very, secretively. Even if the startup has 20 people, only maybe top 10, 2, 3, 4 people will know what exactly it is, not beyond that. Because you never know when they will go and, either they start their own or they join another big company.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So keeping the critical information with you, probably in the form of a trade secret, is very important. And then subsequently, it should also get patented, because patent does two things. One is when you sell your technology, if you have a patent, you get a better value. Another is that you restrict another guy to develop same thing. You have developed it, but you do not know whether another guy is also thinking in the same line and developing. And he files a patent before you file, though you have this knowledge much early, but you may not be able to prove it in the court of law that you have this idea already with you, and you lose the patent, right? You lose the right on the technology or product. So both way it is kind of very important. You need to assess it. And my suggestion would be, most of this entrepreneur, getting a proper advice that this is what you have and this is what you want to do, and whether you should patent, or if you go to a patent company, they will always say patent it. Even if you go to CSIR, I do not know ICR too much, though Dr. Mahapatra is a good friend of mine, I could have asked him, but I don't know what ICR plans for it. But what I know from CSIR point of view, when Dr. Maselkar came and gave the statement that publish and perish, so everybody started going towards filing patents. Now CSIR is holding huge number of patents. Maintaining each of the patent is also a cost to institute.
Yes.
So you need to be very careful whether I should patent it, hold it, keep it as a trade secret, or whether after 2 years I file a patent. So you need to be very, very strategic in that. If you go to a patent company, they will always say, please file a patent, and they will earn some money out of it. So my suggestion would be take expert help who can really tell you whether you should go for a patent or hold it for some more time, or it's a unique idea, you need to protect it immediately. You need to protect not only in India, but also in the other countries. So that's a strategic decision, but it's a cost. It's not cheap. It's not cheap.
Sir, I have got one question.
Sir, this is last question, sir. Your schedule is very busy. Okay, sir, this is last question we will take.
Yeah, tell me.
Basically, we are speaking about startups, and as you mentioned, finance is a major problem for them. But for them to establish themselves in the industry, they should have a specific focus for marketing and branding of their products. Because even though they are having a different innovative idea, but they are only producing a competitive products. They are not unique in itself, serving a separate purpose. So what should be the level of importance that a startup should give for branding or marketing of their product?
So as you said rightly, everything costs money, and it's not very easy to create a brand also, and brand eventually helps. I was showing some images of a hydroponics farm in India, which is run by one of my friends called Urban Kishan. So they started 3 years back, and they are flooded with ideas and as well as investors. What I have seen is, they took an approach of branding parallelly. If you have a good product and which you think that it can become much bigger, if you can put this brand into media, different form of media. And nowadays, there are a lot of benefits also with the social media. Also, a lot of branding is possible. So my suggestion would be, it all depends on what type of product. If it is just a very standard product, then create a brand on a standard. But if it is a new kind of idea, new thought, new product, then branding is also equally important. To educate people that this is a new thought, new idea, and this is the brand. So I would say it all gets linked to what are you going to offer to the market. If I know that this is a product you are trying to put into the market, people like me will be able to advise whether to go for branding now, because branding is also an investment. But that investment, it can give you multiple returns. If you do it properly, without branding, you are trying to sell something, and with branding, there is a very, very drastic difference. I was talking to somebody, who worked in Dabur, it just comes to my mind. They tried to launch Lal Dant Manjan, the red toothpaste. So everybody said that we are habituated with white toothpaste. Why we should adopt a red toothpaste? Who will buy a red toothpaste? But they tried to take the brand from the ancient Indian culture point of view. And now that is probably one of the best products that they sell from Dabur, the red Dantam, the Lal Dantam Manjan. So it is the product which will guide you what approach you should take. If it is a machine, there is a different way to commercialize it. But if it is a consumer product, then you will have to decide whether you should enter into the branding now or not.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Sir, very much we are thankful to your guidance and your experience on behalf of SIPCOT and SIPCOT RABI and from all startups. We are, sir, very much thankful to, in spite of a busy schedule, we are able to catch you, sir, and take your guidance. Sir, many thanks. And also I thanks to Karpan City. He has suggested your name, and I contact him. He's one of my best colleagues. And thanks to all the startups who have joined and take the benefit of Stalwart, who have did their journey by own efforts. And you listen to him whenever you get a chance. You can interact with him to take a breath, because sometimes you people are suffocated. What to do, what not to do, where to go. So that this type of successful entrepreneurs you should touch, and you take their help, and they will definitely guide you, and they are very positive in guiding and building our country. So with these few words, I am thankful very much, sir. Sir, we are looking forward this type of help in coming future also. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all, and good luck to all these new entrepreneurs who are entering into business. Good luck to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.